Welcome back to the exciting book of Genesis. And we're in chapter 11. I have my first reader read Genesis 11, 1 through 5, please.
And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad the face of the whole earth. And Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded.
Okay, so here it is. We see that the whole earth was of one language during this time and one speech. You know, and they came to pass that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. Shinar speaks to a country of two rivers. So here it is. We have a country of two rivers. You know, and they started building this tower. You know, that they prayed, whose top may reach unto heaven. You know, and so that they can make to themselves a name. You know, lest they be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. So, you know, that seemed to be like that was a fear that they had, that they would be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. You know, because at this point they were one. They was of one language and one speech. So, you know, that was a concern of theirs. You know, and it speaks to us that Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. My next reader, verses 6 through 9. Let's see what comes next.
And Yahuwah said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahuwah scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because Yahuwah did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did Yahuwah scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
Okay, so we see here something that's transpiring during this time, you know, and that is, you know, the people had come together, you know, and they had imagined to do something that was obviously, you know, not in Yah's will. Okay, now there's a lot of conjecture as to about what that was. You know, we're not going to get into that because Scripture just simply does not say, you know, and so anything would just be conjecture or supposition, you know. But point being, there was something that was going on, and Yah was not happy with it. You know, he found exception with it, and so he done something about it. In fact, he done the very thing that they were in fear of happening, and that is to scatter them abroad. You know, and he done that by confounding their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. And so, verse 8 tells us that Yahuwah scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build a city. Okay? Now, this was obviously something was heading to a place, you know, that Yah did not want it to go. And so, Yah supernaturally stepped in and put a halt to it. Now, what I want to call your attention to is that there's actually, you know, I know I always see parallels in Scripture, you know, to what's going on now. But, yeah, there's a parallel, you know, now, betwixt the time now and this time, in all actuality. You know, a parallel that has not existed since this had happened. You know, and I think that's noteworthy. I think that's very noteworthy that we should bring that out, and that you should understand that once again, the people is one and they have one language. And even if it was true then it's true now. As they begin to do, nothing will be restrained from them which they imagine to do. You know, I want you to understand that, see, because it just so happens that we live in a day and a time in which this, what Yah had done during that time, has been undone in our time. You know, there's a company called Waverly Labs that has created some earbuds called the Pilot. You know, and they released May 15th of this year. You know, it works with an app, and it instantly translates what someone is saying to another from another language. You know, effectively bridging the barrier or smashing the barrier of communication that existed with different nations. You know, and what I'm pointing out and what I'm trying to get you to see is that, you know, what Yah had done to stop them, to refrain them, you know, from doing everything that that came to their mind. You know, everything that they imagined to do has been undone. That barrier no longer exists in our day and time. So you can expect some things to happen. Because even as, you know, some things were about to happen then that Yah didn't want to happen, so he stepped in. You know, so it is, some things are going to happen now that that barrier has been removed. Only now the timing is right. Only now Yah will let it happen. You know, I want you to know and understand that never before in the history of mankind, you know, except for the time that we live in, has all the miracle signs and wonders that's spoken of in Scripture is able to be brought about from a technological viewpoint. Now today, from a technological viewpoint, man can bring about every miracle sign and wonder, or I should say every line miracle sign and wonder that Scripture speaks about. See, and you have to understand that, because once you understand that, then you understand that you're living in a special time. You know, and I believe that, you know, technology has advanced to a point to where the end time prophecies can come to pass. You know, I don't think that this is a coincidence. You know, and I believe that Yah put this barrier in place to keep the end time prophecies from happening until his timing. And I believe that time is now, you know, because the barrier has been removed. You know, so it's just something to think about. You know, this is what Yah had done to keep them from not doing everything that they imagined to do. Everything that man imagined to do is not good. You have to understand that, you know, and right now we see that they're imagining to make their own vegetables, their own fruits, their own foods. They're imagining to make their own people, their own animals. They're imagining to do some really weird and crazy things. And there's nothing to stop them. You know, but yet it's by design. But you still need to understand the times that you live in and understand, you know, what's going on around you. You know, this barrier has been removed, and you can trust and believe, you know, that nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. And so they're imagining to do some pretty wicked stuff. You know, so I just want to tug on your coattail and, you know, and put a bug in your ear and, you know, and all that sort of stuff, just to make you aware, you know, of the special time that we live in. You know, this is not by happenstance. This is not a coincidence. You know, never before could, you know, did this exist. You know, never before did this exist. These language barriers was very real. You know, and they were very difficult to get over. It was very difficult to get over those hurdles. Yep. You know, so much so people had to carry other people with them just to interpret. And even then, that didn't always work because you didn't know if your interpreter was saying what you really wanted them to say. You know, or vice versa. You know, so, you know, this is a real serious issue that Yah set in place that has been removed, you know, in our day and time. You know, it's just another thing that points to that we're in the end times. You know, so I just wanted to bring that out. And then there's kind of like a natural break right here, you know. And now here it is, you know, we start talking about the generations of Shem and what transpires from that point. You know, let me have my next reader read verses 11 through 15.
And Shem lived after he begot Arphaxad 500 years and begot sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begot Selah. And Arphaxad lived after he begot Selah 403 years and begot sons and daughters. And Selah lived 30 years and begot Eber. And Selah lived after he begot Eber 403 years, begot sons and daughters.
Okay, so here it is. We see that Shem's progeny began to come forth, you know, and he gave way to Arphaxad, whose name means I shall fail as the breast, or he cursed the breast bottom, or stronghold of the Chaldees. You know, I kind of choose stronghold of the Chaldees. And then, you know, he begot Salah. Salah speaks to a spear or a sprout or an extension of something, you know. And then from him eventually came Eber, which we get the name for the Hebrews. You know, Eber was actually Hebrew. You know, is where they get Hebrew. And it actually means to reason beyond or the other side, having crossed over. And so Scripture seems to be teaching us or telling us a story about, you know, a stronghold of the Chaldees, you know, that was extended and crossed over to the other side. The other side of what? Well, verse 6 tells us, and Eber lived 430 years and begot Peleg. Peleg name means a channel, as a cleft dividing. So now, verse 17 says, and Eber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years and begot sons and daughters. And First Chronicles 1:19 chimes in and tells us, unto Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, and he was named this because in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Yoktan, which we're not really concerned with right now. But you know, so the Scripture seems to be telling us a tale through the names, you know, about, you know, a stronghold of Chaldees that extended over to the other side of the cleft or channel after this division in the earth happened. You know, some, you know, suppose that there was a great earthquake and it divided the earth, and some even says this is when the continents were separated, you know, but, you know, that's supposition. But we do see that something's being told us through these names, you know, and so the Hebrews were known as the ones who had crossed over, those who had went on the other side. You know, and so it is even now today. The Hebrews, you know, speaks to those who cross over. You know, we're trying to cross over ourselves. We're trying to get over the other side. We're trying to get into the kingdom of Elohim, the kingdom of Hashemayim, my man. We're trying to cross over. You know, verse 18, and Peleg lived 30 years and begot Reu. Reu speaks to an associate, his associate, or his feeder or his friend or his shepherd. Okay, so it essentially speaks to friend or shepherd. And we see a lot of shepherds in the line of Messiah, you know, when you look through his lineage, you know, there's something about that shepherd. Then we have Genesis 1:19 and 20. It says, and Peleg lived after he begot Reuel 209 years and begot sons and daughters. And Reuel lived 230 years and begot Serug. Serug, his name means intertwined, tendril, or branch. And we see something about a shepherd and a branch, you know, but it's very vague. It's not really no connection that you can make per se, because that branch gives way to Nahor. Let me have my next reader read verses 21 through 26.
And Reu lived after he begot Serug 207 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years, and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years, and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years, and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran.
Okay, so we see Serug, he gives, he brings about, he begots Nahor, which means snorter or breathing hard. Yeah, he ran all his life. You know, it actually speaks to someone that's angry or, or breathing hard. Yeah, snorter. Yeah, nice name. And then we have Terah. Terah, Nahor, we got Terah. And Terah, his name can mean thou may breathe. Go figure. His father breathed hard and, so that he can breathe. But it also can mean delay or station, and Terah, of course, gave birth to Abram. Abram means high or exalted father, who went around most of his life with no kids. Tell me God doesn't have irony. And then you have Haran, which speaks to a mountaineer. And also Terah had another son named Nahor that I guess he named after his father. But he didn't last too long. He died. We're going to read about that. My next reader, verses 21 through 29.
Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, and the daughter of Haran, and the father of Milcah, and the father of Ishmael.
Okay, so these are the generations of Terah. This is another one of those teledope that we spoke about earlier in this series, and here it is. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. Everybody remember Lot, right? His name means a wrapping or veil or covering or wrapped up. Yeah, he's pretty well covered. And it says Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. Ur speaks to a flame or a light, and Chaldee speaks to cloud breakers or conquerors. And then we have Abram and Nahor taking them wives. And I thought this was interesting. Abram's wife was, of course, Sarai, which means my princess. And Nahor's wife name was Milcah, which means my queen, or means queen. So we see, they're presented as royalty. They're having princesses and queens for wives, right? And Ishkar, which we don't hear too much of, is just observant, means to watch, that one who looks for. So, you know, but here it is. I thought that was interesting that, you know, both of the brothers marry royalty, you know, one a princess and the other was a queen. My next reader, verses 30 through 32.
But Sarai was barren, and she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son. And Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son's Abram's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came upon Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran.
Okay, now one thing to take note of, I do believe that Sarai was the first woman in Scripture to be barren. You know, that at least that we're told that was barren. You know, and it speaks of her having no child. And we know that, you know, this would go on for, you know, most of her life. You know, and I think that's very noteworthy, you know, so, you know, because, you know, you see this line of barren women that comes through this lineage, you know, afterwards, you know, and, you know, so Sarai sets the precedence for that, you know, so that's, you know, something to keep our eye on, so to speak. And it says, and Terah took Abram his son and Lot, the son of Haran and his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, and the son of Abram's wife, and they went forth from the Ur of the Chaldees. You know, and again, Terah meant delay or station. You know, and so, you know, I just wanted to point out, you know, something that's, you know, maybe, you know, inspirational. You know, we see, you know, that Terah, you know, he actually takes a delay, or he stationed himself, you know, with his family, you know, and he takes them forth from Ur of the Chaldees. And remember, Ur meant flame or light, you know, so we see a picture of him taking his family from the light of the Chaldees, or the light of the conquerors, because Chaldees speaks to being a conqueror, you know. So here we see a spiritual picture of Abram's father, you know, actually taking his family from the light of the conquerors, you know. And, you know, if you have eyes to see, you know, there's, you know, Yahshua's people is dwelling in the land of the Chaldees, so to speak. You know, they're dwelling in the light of their conquerors, of those who have conquered the faith, who has perverted the faith. You know, and at some point, you know, we need to gather ourselves and our families and go into the land of Canaan too. This Canaan, you know, speaks to a land of purple, or it can also speak to merchants, or to humble or subdue. You know, so we want to go to a land of purple, a land of royalty. We want to go. We want to go in to a land where, you know, they're humble and subdued. You know, they're in submission to Yah, not in submission to man. You know, how wondrous would it be if we do like Terah and grab our families and we venture out, you know, and we actually come out of her, my people, and we actually go into, you know, the promised land, the kingdom of Elohim, as the Most High has instructed us. If we come out of this world and begin to walk in the way of Elohim, you know, till we get to, you know, that city that was not built by man's hands, to that city that was built by Yah himself, even New Jerusalem. You know, what if we followed suit of what Terah did, you know, and truly come out of the light of our conquerors and begin to walk in the volume of the book, even as our Messiah Yahshua came in the volume of the book. You know, we can walk this way out. You know, this way, you know, it is a way through the wilderness, and so it is a rough way. It is humbling. It will subdue us. you know, but only in a good way. You know, if we allow it to. You know, this is, you know, we've been speaking about last week, you know, the whole message was centered around, you know, the way of Elohim. This way has existed from the beginning of time. And this way is found throughout Scripture, you know, as we pointed out in last week's message. And guess what? It hasn't changed. You know, if we're going to get into the kingdom of Elohim, we're going to have to go the same way that we're about to learn that Abraham went. We're going to have to go the same way that Yitzhak went, that Yaakov went, that Joseph went, that Moshe went, that Elijah went. We're going to have to go the same way of Elohim that all his other saints went. There's no getting around that. You know, hence the followers of the Messiah was called the followers of the way. You see them arguing about because of the way in which the followers of Yahshua lived. You know, so, you know, it's real important that you understand that, you know, and this is when, you know, this journey begins with the story of Abram. You know, he was one of the first ones in Scripture that we can see clearly that walked in the way. You know, and so we're going to be learning a lot about the way as we learn, you know, about him coming out of the world that he knew. You know, and just following what Yah said for him to do. Following for the way that Yah directed him. Acknowledging him in all his ways and how Yah directed his paths. Don't you know he's no respecter of person? If he done it for him, he'll do it for us. You know, it says in verse 32, and the days of Terah were 205 years. And Terah died in Haran. He died, he was just a baby, wasn't he? You know, you know, when you compare him to, you know, the lifespans of all those that preceded him, you know, some of them didn't even have kids until after they was 500. You know, we just read one of them. He was 530 before he even had, you know, had a child. You know, late bloomer. You know, but that's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing. And